Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Darren really outdid himself today. Great, big, giant show. And I say that with all sincerity. Second hour, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers will be here with us. We're going to talk about balancing faith and life and work. And not that those are all different things, but finding the balance there. It's a hard one. And this hour, we talk about bringing the faith home. This is probably one of the most common things that we hear, especially when people ask for prayers from our chaplain and whatnot, is that somehow the faith has failed in my home. That children or a child have not accepted the faith. My wife and I are struggling in the faith. We wish we had passed it on better, all those kinds of things. And I think that's probably a common story around the country and maybe today even around the world. So we talk about the practical side of bringing the faith home. If you have a question about that, if you'd like some help and direction in that area, 888-318-7884. And we have news about an exciting new project being undertaken in that area today as well. So during this hour, we will discuss that. Our guest is Dr. Greg Popcak, the founder and director of the Pastoral Solutions Institute, a Catholic telecounseling practice providing faithful solutions to tough marriage, family, and personal problems. He's a psychotherapist with dozens of books, and he and his wife Lisa host More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak each weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern and 9 a.m. Central on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Dr. Popcak, thanks for being with us today.
It's terrific to be here, so I thank you.
I hear that you are in balmy -3 where you are, and I say some of the country, it's crazy how cold it is.
Yeah, no, it compared to some other places, I had nothing to complain about, but it is, it's -3 without the wind chill here in Steubenville, Ohio.
Yeah, it's dangerously cold in some places, and so, keep folks in our prayers and just ask you to be careful. So you have a symposium you're working on that deals with this very area we're talking about today, faith in the family setting. Can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Well, that's right. Yeah. So the Pastoral Solutions Institute, my organization, is organizing a symposium on Catholic family life and spirituality. It's being supported by the OSV Institute, Holy Cross Family Ministries, and the McGrath Institute for Church Life at the University of Notre Dame. And we're meeting in July. What we're doing is we're gathering about 30 professional theologians, social scientists, and pastoral ministry folks who are internationally recognized for their work and writing on family life. And we're trying to look at what can we do to renew Catholic family life, to help households really live and experience the faith in a more meaningful way at home, to raise dynamically faithful kids, to experience an authentically domestic church-based spirituality. For example, a lot of what we think of as Catholic spirituality is largely drawn from the clerical and monastic tradition, right? So what that means is that we get a lot of calls on our radio program, for example, I'm sure you guys have heard this too, that, people will say, oh, I had a great prayer life, and then I got married and had kids, as if somehow the marriage and family vocation is, hostile to spiritual growth. And that doesn't make any sense. But the fact is, in our church's history, no one's really ever considered the question, what should a domestic church-based spirituality look like that actually fits with messy family life? Historically, it was just, whatever you guys can do, you can borrow it from the monastic and clerical traditions, but, you work it out. So
right.
We're going to actually try to get together in July with this high-level meeting and really talk more about what does a dynamic Catholic domestic church look like. Are Catholic families called to look different than other families somehow in the way we relate to each other as husbands and wives and parents and kids? How can we experience Jesus as another member of the family in the household, right? How can we raise kids to be excited about their faith and on fire for the Lord? How can families partner with the church in the mission of building the kingdom of God? How can we do a better job of really empowering families to do what God created families to do?
It's I just get so excited hearing you talk about that, because we do have all through the history of the church these new movements, that spiritual movements that respond to the needs of the time, whether it's the founding of the monasteries or the mendicant orders and all that. And people, I think, really feel a sense of shame and guilt I know I do sometimes, about having failed somehow in the family to communicate the faith as well as we wanted to our children. But it's exciting to think, well, maybe that's because this is a pregnant moment. We need a new way of thinking about family spirituality.
And you know, the good news is, in the last decade or so, there's been a lot of really good research in what's called faith transmission. You know, the idea of passing the faith on from one generation to the other. And the research has really been looking at what does it take, you know, with those families that are successful by hook or crook. How do they manage to pass the faith on to the next generation and have kids who really kind of take it? And it's removing some, not all, but some of the guesswork from the equation. And so we're going to be looking at some of that research. Are you looking at that through the lens of the Catholic vision of what family life should be? And we're really excited about this. And even though, you know, people have asked, well, you know, can everybody come to this symposium? And no, it's an invitation-only gathering, because we really want to try to get together all the best people who are really studying this question, so that we can come up with some good, solid answers and information we can give to people. But we want all of the listeners to participate in this symposium. And what we've done is we've created a survey that's on the website at cflsymposium.org. That's for Catholic Family Life Symposium, cflsymposium.org. And if folks go there, they can respond to the four major questions that we're going to be debating and discussing at the event. And we're going to take all the information, all the insights that your listeners want to share with us from that survey, and share that with the group of folks that are gathering for that, so their voices will be heard as well, and their experiences will taken into account as well.
So anybody can participate. Just go to that cflsymposium.org site and answer the questions, and that will be helpful.
Yep, just scroll on down to "We Want to Know What You Think," the heading there, and then click the survey link and answer the questions there. It'll ask you some questions about how you experience the faith at home and what you've tried to do to maybe pass the faith on to your kids, or pray together as a family, or the struggles that you've encountered in that. Because we want to just get a good overview of what the contemporary experience is of Catholic families. So wherever you're at in that journey, we'd love to hear from you at cflsymposium.org. Just take that survey there. But you're right. It's a pregnant moment. I think you know, the Vatican II called for the universal call to holiness. It was sort of a novel idea then. You know, that it wasn't just lay people, or clergy and religious, that were called to holiness. That everyone, including lay people, including married couples and families, were called to holiness. And the idea of the domestic church being a partner with the church in building the kingdom was also a relatively novel innovation of the Second Vatican Council. But, you know, 60 years on, we've not really done a whole lot with it. You know, there's been a fair amount of higher-level theology defining what the Catholic vision of marriage and family life looks like, but the practical theology of it, you know, hasn't really been developed. So, you know, you ask even really devout Catholic families, well, what makes Catholic family life different, you know, on the ground than your neighbor's household? You know? And I don't think anybody's really able to answer that, because we haven't really discussed the question in any meaningful way.
888-318-7884 is our number here. We welcome your calls on bringing the faith home today, whether a question or a comment for Dr. Greg Popcak. 888-318-7884. That address, cflsymposium.org. If you're driving, or if maybe you're listening to the podcast later, and you want to get that address, it'll be in the show notes. Nick will put it in the show notes for you, so it's easy to access, and that's at Catholic.com. 888-318-7884. Are you hoping that you'll come out of this symposium with a statement or a plan of action?
We're hoping to come up with a lot of practical recommendations. So we're going to at least produce a book that will be more of an academic book, but then we're going to adapt that for everybody, so that we have a lot of accessible, practical recommendations for parents, for pastors, for pastoral ministers who want to help to animate Catholic family life. We're going to be making recommendations to publishers and other content producers for what kind of resources families need to really live their mission more effectively. We're going to also be launching at that event the Catholic Family Life Institute. And that's going to be an organization who will be responsible for continuing this conversation with original research, with other events that will hopefully be even larger than this and maybe even open to the public, of new resources. So, this is really a long-term commitment, thanks to the OSV Institute, a long-term commitment to the renewal of Catholic family life.
888-318-7884. We're talking about bringing the faith home to the family. If that's an issue in your life, or maybe if you anticipated being an issue in your life, and it is for almost everybody, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Dr. Greg Popcak, our guest for this hour, 888-31-TRUTH. And it's almost the end of January. I think I only get to say this today and tomorrow. Our pro-life sale, it continues for Pro-Life Month at shop.catholic.com. You just go over to shop.catholic.com. You click on the $5 pro-life category, and everything in our catalog that is related to life issues, including Made This Way by Trent Horn and Layla Miller, is on sale for just $5 because we want to do our part for Pro-Life Month. Shop.catholic.com, $5 pro-life banner, and get your stuff for pro-life, all your pro-life stuff there for $5 right now.
Your questions, Catholic Answers, live.
EWTN is now on Twitter. Get short, timely messages from EWTN on your computer or cell phone. It's easy to stay up to date on a wide variety of topics. Pro-life news, Vatican announcements, catechesis, apologetics, the latest EWTN programming, and more. You can link to EWTN on Twitter from our homepage or go to twitter.com/EWTN. At work, at home, at school, and on the road. Stay connected to your world with EWTN's Twitter page.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. We promised it. We're delivering it a great big giant Wednesday for you today. And this hour we have Dr. Greg Popcak with us. You hear him on mornings on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network with More to Life. He and his wife Lisa do that program. If you want to find out about the Catholic counseling part of his life, you can go to CatholicCounselors.com. And the symposium that we've been discussing on faith and the family is you can find at cflsymposium.org. Take the survey there. It would be very helpful to those who will be participating in that symposium. Also recommend a couple books for you from Dr. Popcak. Discovering God Together, that's about the family, discovering God together, and then praying for and with your spouse, also about the same topic from the perspective of a married couple. Lots of folks already on the line. We appreciate the calls, 888-318-7884. Let's start this segment with Travis in Boise, Idaho, listening on 102.3 FM. Travis, I hope you're warm and safe and well. Your question for Dr. Popcak.
Yeah, I was just curious. It seems that the father figure is quite influential on the family and passing on the faith and being the spiritual leader. And I'm just wondering how much that's going to play a part in this symposium. And I mean, it seems like study after study is showing that if the father is highly involved in his faith, then that will trickle down to the rest of the family. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The father involvement is critical. And it's not enough, by the way, that the father would be involved or highly religious. He has to be taking charge of the faith formation in the home, where dads are kind of being both, by the way, responsible for the primary faith formation in the home and also gentle disciplinarians, those two things kind of working together, where dads kind of, instead of being heavy-handed, are able to walk kids through the consequences of things and kind of teach better ways to behave. Those two things together where fathers are really discipling their children both in faith and values and in a healthy way of living, that's where kids especially are much, much more likely to own their faith as adults. Which is not to say that moms are doomed if they don't have that father's support, but they are working uphill. The reality is, in the psychology of kids, dad represents the first other, right? For the first couple of years, the kid doesn't even really know that he's separate from his mom, right? It makes sense because he was part of his mom's body, right? So the first year or two, he still thinks of himself as part of mom. And so whatever mom does, there's a sort of gut-level sense that that's what you do privately. That's what I do, by myself. But dad represents first other, right? And he represents to me how the world works. So if dad is faithful, that's going to show me that I'm supposed to be faithful out there in the world, right? So when mom is just faithful, faith becomes something that I kind of do privately and quietly by myself or at home. But where dad is faithful, he shows me that that's how I kind of pack up my show and take it on the road. And so that's how mom and dad work really well, importantly, together to help a child own the faith and then take it out into the world as well.
What do you make of that, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, with that. This kind of topic just fires me up because I see, I think a lot of parishes, they're constantly trying to search how to get people involved and how to, get young families to church, and I just really feel like I see a big tide turning with men getting more involved with their faith, and I want to continue to see that. So I'm just hoping that there's a lot more material out there for guys to get involved in their faith and why they need to be involved with their faith and things like that.
Sure. Hey, can I make a suggestion to you? I have a book called The Beatitudes, 8 Ways to Be an Awesome Dad. And what it does is it looks at how men can really become fathers after the father's own heart. And each chapter looks at a beatitude in light of the fatherhood of God and how men can begin to appreciate first their sonship as sons of God, then as partner to their wife, and then father to their children, and how each of those beatitudes reflects how men can be those godly fathers. I'd really, based on the passion that you have for this topic, I really encourage you to check out Beatitudes. I think you'd really get a lot out of it.
Travis, thanks very much. And don't forget, you can participate too. Just go over to cflsymposium.org and answer the questions there. It will be helpful to those who are undertaking to understand and move forward the spirituality of the family for the modern world. Let's go to Joe in Worcester, Mass., one of my favorite places in the world, listening on 1230 a.m. Joe, your question for Dr. Greg Popcak.
Dr. Greg, I just want to say right out of the gate, I want to say that I enjoy listening to you every morning. You do a real great job. Your show is fantastic. Thank you for being here.
God bless you, Joe.
The question
Thanks
I have
I really
is,
appreciate that.
You're very welcome. You're very knowledgeable on Scripture. I really enjoy listening to your show. But anyway, so the question I have is, why aren't the CCD teachers more informed or more educated before they teach the young children? And more specifically, you have just recently confirmed students that wind up teaching young CCD students when we could use the retired religious as a valuable resources.
Dr. Popcak?
Yeah. Well, this isn't really my area so much, but I can say that every diocese is a little different in what they do for preparing religious educators, and a lot of those folks are volunteers. I think the problem, as far as I'm concerned, is that we're not doing really efficient or effective formation of Catholics in general. That most Catholics are really pretty poorly informed about their faith. And you take somebody who doesn't have a great foundation, and you give them an 8-week course in basic religion, and then you set them out to teach the course. So we need to do more all over to form Catholics more effectively. So I can't really specifically respond to that particular question because, like I said, every diocese has a different training program for their religious educators. But by and large, we need to do a better job of forming all Catholics to be able to proclaim the faith and teach the next generation.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks very much. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Are we in a little bit, I'm just following up on Joe's question, we are in a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation where we need to be better formed so that we can fully live the faith, and we need to be fully living the faith so we can find out why we need to be better formed?
You're right on there. You know, and I think, well, you know, Joe's point about retired religious, I mean, I think that they're doing all that they can, but we've leaned for a really long time in the church on clergy and religious, and that's good. That's what they're there for. But we also have fewer of them than ever, you know. And I don't think the church is really caught up with the fact that we need a more dynamic and formed laity in order to fill that gap. And so that's sort of what we're struggling with right now. And that's what this symposium is really all about. How do we create another generation of truly faithful, on-fire, informed Catholics that are raised in the family? You know, we spend so much energy as a church. So many of our ministry efforts are focused on gathering lost sheep that should never have been lost in the first place. How can we, as a church, do a better job of empowering families to teach and live the faith in their homes so that our kids, you know, have this in their bones, and they grow up to be passionately in love with the church and on fire for God in their adulthood? Yeah, I mean, I got to say, to my parents' credit, that's how I felt. You know, I went. My mom and dad were involved in the charismatic renewal, and they were going to prayer meetings. You know, when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and my mom would look around and see that a lot of the other parents weren't bringing their kids, and it broke her heart because she felt that faith should bring families together. So she went to the leader of the prayer group and said, you know, Tom, you should have something for kids. And he looked at her and said, great, next week you should have something. And so she started doing a children's ministry.
Wow.
And at that point, she actually adapted the what's called Life in the Spirit and she adapted it for kids. And I went through it when I was 6. And it hit hard. It stuck. And I went through all my sacraments then after having gone through Life in the Spirit, and really had a personal connection with all the sacraments going up. So even when I was, you know, in high school and college, and I would have my little faith struggles and, you know, issues with family and friends and all that, I might get mad at God, but I couldn't imagine going anywhere else, because who would I be without Him, right?
Yes.
And I want that. I want that for every single kid. That's what God wants for His children, and I want to do whatever I can to help families give their kids that experience.
I do think the homeschooling movement has been part of that. Parents wanting and maybe having trouble finding the educational setting that will light the kids on fire, that will really give them confidence in the sacraments like that. Are you satisfied with the results we're getting from the Catholic homeschooling movement?
Oh, I mean, I think homeschooling is terrific. I mean, and my wife and I have homeschooled all of our kids, you know, through high school. It's awesome. I will say that homeschooling alone isn't going to do it, though, because faith formation isn't purely an intellectual thing, right? It's an emotional thing. It's a falling in love with God thing, and so if you're homeschooling and you're able to give your kids a real personal, tangible experience of Jesus as part of your household, well, then that's great. But you know what? If you can do that and your kids are going to public school, that'll work too. The point is, you know, how do we as parents give our kids that experience of Christ as a real life person who loves them and is part of their family life? And how do we introduce Jesus to our kids in that way so that they know He's real? You know, there was a recent study. I forget who did it now, but it found that the kids who announce themselves to be atheists often determine that they're atheists by between age 11 and 13.
Right.
I mean, right now, that's terrible. And what that says is that you know, we've got a bunch of kids who've heard about God but who've never met Him. You know, if somebody wrote a book saying that my mother didn't exist, I wouldn't have to have a degree in physics to call the guy an idiot, because I've met my mom. But if we've got kids who are being told about God but never met Him, of course they're going to say by 11 or 13 years old that they don't believe in Him, because they don't know who He is. They just heard stories about Him. And when you hit that 11, 12, 13, that's when stories die. That's when we stop believing in fables. And that's when our kids are giving up the faith, because they've not met Jesus Christ in a meaningful, personal way in their households.
And that's the rub, isn't it? Like, how do we, as families, make that happen in a personal way that's
Right.
that matters to our children, or that makes that crucial difference to the children?
And that's what we're going to be talking about at the symposium. That's right.
We're talking with Dr. Greg Popcak. You know him from More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa. Mornings on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. He is the founder of an organization that does what you call it. What is it? What's the word? Telecounseling.
Telecounseling. Yeah. So marriage, family, and personal counseling. It's a full service mental health practice, but it's completely Catholic integrated. I have 10 therapists that work with me. We do over 15,000 sessions a year with Catholics all over the world.
That's Pastoral Solutions Institute. You can find out all about it at CatholicCounselors.com. If you have questions about bringing the faith home, really sharing the faith in the context of the home, we'd love to hear from you. 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Author Mark McNeil spent years in the Oneness Pentecostal movement, praying in its lively services, zealously spreading its unconventional teachings, and rejecting mainstream Christianity as misguided. Then he left it all behind. All in the Name is the story of a man who believed he was among an elite group of believers who followed the true faith when so many others had strayed. But an inquisitive mind, careful study, and the action of the Holy Spirit finally led Mark out of Oneness Pentecostalism and into the Catholic Church. This is an inspiring conversion story you won't want to miss. It's a faith strengthener for Catholics and an intriguing challenge to those who deny the doctrine of the Trinity. Order your copy of All in the Name today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Is the Church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Gloria Purvis.
I'm Deacon Harold. The Morning Glory team talks about keeping kids at Mass or kicking them out.
Tomorrow morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Catholic Answers Live. Hey, Cy.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, joined by EWTN Radio superstar Dr. Greg Popcak. This hour, and we're talking about.
Wow, I got a promotion.
Did you? Oh, you didn't see the letter that came out from EWTN that we're now to refer to you as a superstar? No, I'm sorry.
I like it. I'm hiring you, man.
That's Tom Price. You know, he sends these notes around to us, and he sent around and said, "Please refer to Dr. Greg as superstar."
Okay. I'll have to check that with Tom.
Yeah. Well, no, don't check that with Tom. You just take my word for it.
That's what I thought.
888-318-7884 is the number. We are talking about bringing the faith home to where, home is where the family is, and I think you'd have to probably have your head buried under a rock not to realize that at home we are having trouble sharing the faith with children. We're having trouble with children who are easily swayed by all the internet stuff, or they are prey to the negativity there, or to the shallowness and meanness that's there, and losing their faith. And we don't want that to happen. And Dr. Popcak has proposed that what we really need to do is start rethinking spirituality in the family. This is one of the most fascinating points I've heard you make, that this is actually something the church has not done before. Thought about, well, how do we live a full spiritual life within the family? Because we have focused on the spiritual lives of monks and of priests and nuns and mendicants and all that, but we need a more fully developed spiritual kind of understanding and program for the family.
Yeah, and it's kind of shocking. I mean, the first couple hundred years of the church, of course, the church was taking root in families, and it grew out of family life.
Right.
But then, as the sort of the monastic movement started to take over, the entire focus of Catholic spirituality became that. That and understandably, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's just that it prevented us from being able to look at what does a spirituality that really takes into account messy family life actually look like.
Right.
And in this day and age now, where you have a society that is not supportive of religion, is not supportive of faith, is barely supportive, if at all, of family life.
Right.
The more and more and more responsibility is put on individuals, mothers and fathers, to figure out how to do this. We can't just look to the neighbors, and we don't just walk to church anymore and hang out with other faithful families all day long and just learn it by osmosis. We got to figure this out, and so there has to be some way to sit down and actually articulate what does this really look like in practice, and how can we intentionally start to create families that are strong and faithful, and exercise a strong spirituality in the home.
All right, back to the phones we go. Dave in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening on 740 AM. You are up next with Dr. Greg Popcak. Your question, please.
Dr. Popcak, are you familiar with something called the Apollos Project? It's something within the evangelical church that addresses this issue.
I'm not, but I'm happy to look at it. What we're doing is, we're looking at all the research that everybody can use, regardless of what faith they are. So, for example, Vern Benson at the University of Southern California, he did a book with Oxford University Press called Faith and Families, terrific resource. Justin Barkas and Christian Smith at the University of Notre Dame did another study that took a look at faith transmission. So we're looking at all the stuff that is sort of the foundational stuff that programs like the one you mentioned would be drawing from. And we're looking at that. Also, we're looking at actually another great professor, Darshan Narvaez. She's a developmental psychologist at Notre Dame who's going to be presenting on kind of the neurobiology of moral development. How can parents help kids wire their brains to be able to think morally and think in virtuous ways? There's some fascinating stuff out there. So we're going to be bringing it all in. So, yeah, absolutely, we're open to all that information.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dave, for that call. We're talking about bringing the faith home with Dr. Greg Popcak today. The number, 888-31-TRUTH. Let's go to Rose in Grand Isle, Nebraska, listening on 91.5 FM. Rose, your question for Dr. Popcak.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. I really enjoy your show, Dr. Popcak, and with your wife. I have to go to work about the time that it's on, but I'm always hung by the fact that I need to go back and listen to it again. My question has to do with Catholic education. We have it available here in our city, and I was trying to stress to our families that they should be sending their children to the Catholic school, and stressing that it was generations of Catholics that built that school, saved, sacrificed, and that this is a gift that they're putting in front of you to take advantage of. But they're looking at it like it's just another choice, and it's our choice, it's not your choice. And as you were mentioning earlier, there are things that can take kids away from that importance too, realizing that importance.
Rose, let me ask you a question. You're talking about your daughter? It says on the board, and is are they a faithful family, and that they're just not sending their kids to Catholic school, but they are a faithful family, or they don't really practice the faith at all?
No. They practice.
Okay.
You know,
I'm just asking. I wanted to know where kind of we stood here with this.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, well, look, I think it's important. You know, if Catholic education is wonderful. I support Catholic schools. I support Catholic education. The problem is, though, I think historically we've tended to lean way too much on the school to form our kids, and then we don't practice the faith at home enough. So, for example, a recent study from Holy Cross Family Ministries and the Center for Applied Research of the Apostolate at Georgetown found that only about 17% of Catholic families pray together. Only about 13% of them say grace at meals, right? And that includes weekly Mass attending Catholic families, too. We have a tendency, again, because of that whole monastic and clerical tradition that we see the lens of, we see Catholic spirituality through, we tend to think of Catholic spirituality as a private and individual thing. And so we haven't really taught our families to pray together. So, you know, as much as I want, you know, your grandkids to go to Catholic school, I want them even more to start praying as a family. And I would actually encourage, because you're going to get better results and increase the likelihood that your grandkids are going to own their faith as adults if you fight the fight of teaching your daughter and her husband how to pray together as a family, how to encourage your grandkids to have an actual personal relationship with Christ through the sacraments. We talk about a lot of this in our book, Discovering God Together, A Catholic Guide to Raising Faithful Kids. And as important as sending your kids to Catholic school could be, it's even more important to be practicing some of these things in the home so that wherever the kids end up going to school, they actually have that encounter of Christ in their home. And so if you have to choose your battles, I would really pick this one of how your kids are living their faith in the home with their kids. And so check out Discovering God Together. It's going to give you some really good insights on the conversations that you want to have with your daughter about how to help your grandkids really own their faith.
Okay.
Thank you for that resource. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rose. It's always nice to talk to a fan of Dr. Popcak. And there are many. There are so many. You got to have a lot.
One or two at least.
I know, 2 already today. But you can't get the title superstar. I believe they have to do some kind of polling to find out if you're a superstar. So I think we're going to go to Maria. No, we're not going to Maria. I think Maria just disappeared on me. Let's go to Paul. Is Maria still there? No? All right. We're going to Paul in Dallas, Texas, listening on 910 a.m. Paul, your question for Dr. Greg Popcak.
I wanted to know, and I believe you've answered the question, will there be a focus on the importance of the family structure and pertaining to their responsibility to train the child and to children and to lead them in the ways of the Lord? And in this particular situation, the doctrine of the Catholic Church. It seems after my 37 years running Adult and Teen Challenge here in North Texas that the larger percentage of people don't have a functioning family, have not had a functioning family. And so I appreciate everything you've said and the emphasis you point out, but will this, and I'm leading up to the real point, will, as a result or the outcome of your conference or seminar, will you have what we call district or regional times where people from all faiths can come and learn from the results of your conference?
We're going to post. We're actually going to post all the talks and all the presentations from the conference are going to be videotaped, and they'll be posted to the website after the event, so it'll be available for anybody who wants to view it. And then we'll also have. So we're going to be looking at the different kind of resources we need to produce to get this message out as much as we can. But your point is tremendously well taken, and I want to highlight something. A lot of times, family ministry starts with, how can we empower families to teach kids about the faith or have a more meaningful faith experience? Where family ministry really needs to start is teaching families how to be family again. We are at a time where families tend to think of themselves as groups of people living under the same roof and sharing a data plan, and that's not enough. You can't disciple kids if all the time you get with your kids is 5 minutes a day driving back and forth from someplace. You have to see family life as an actual activity. And so one of the things we talk about in our book, Discovering God Together, The Catholic Guide to Raising Faithful Kids, is what does family life as a faithful activity look like? And one of the main things we talk about is the importance of having small times of connection around work, play, talk, and pray every day. Even if that's 5 to 10 minutes for each of those things. You invest 45 to 50 minutes in your family life a day in like 5 to 10 minute blocks. But working together, like, cleaning up the dishes together as a family after dinner, is an important family ritual. But it takes time and intention. Getting some time to pray together as a family every day in a meaningful way, even for 5 to 10 minutes. Getting some time to play a game or walk around the block together or shoot some hoops or to spend some time playing together is an important family activity. And talking, right? Not just about where do you need to go and what needs to be picked up at the store, but, hey, what are you worried about? What's going on? How can we take better care of each other as a family? Those are important conversations that don't come up unless we make a point of having them. And unless we schedule the time for it, those conversations never happen. So, a big part of family ministry has to be teaching families how to be family again and to think of family life as an activity that requires time and requires some scheduling and some effort to make it actually happen. So that's a terrific point. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that call, Paul. I appreciate it. Got to take a quick break, but I want to let you know Catholic Answers magazine still on sale. One of the finest Catholic magazines in the world. Savings up to $10 on your subscription, 1 or 2 year subscriptions, both on sale. Plus, you get the free digital subscription right now when you subscribe. This offer is good through the end of January, which I believe is fast approaching. Actually, that's Thursday. So sign up now at CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
Bringing you the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
Fallen away Catholic years and years ago, doing my own thing, and my mom and dad never gave up on me, and I know it was the Holy Rosary, and they kept after me. Philip, pray your Rosary, and eventually I did. I'm a member of the Knights of the Immaculata, Maximilian Kolbe's group. I'm with the Legion of Mary, and I haven't stopped leading the Rosary in nursing homes, thanks be to God.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, 888-31-TRUTH, our number. Next hour, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is going to be here. Deacon is one of the hosts of Morning Glory on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. And today we're going to talk a bit with Deacon Harold about, balancing faith, family, and work. So this is a big day for those kinds of things that are very practical. We need to deal with those practical things. Again, I want to give you the address of the symposium that we've been discussing with Dr. Greg Popcak. It's called, or you can go online to cflsymposium.org, cflsymposium.org, and help by answering a few questions there, and that will be a help to the people who are going to gather, experts really in their fields and theologians and psychologists to talk about a new spirituality or how to develop a spirituality for the family in the modern age. Just go to CFL Symposium and put in your answers. CFLsymposium.org. 888-318-7884, the number here. If you have a question about bringing the faith home to your family for Dr. Popcak. Let's go to Ralph in Muscatine, Iowa, listening on 105.3 FM. I know it's cold there, Ralph. Hope you're safe and warm. Your question for Dr. Popcak.
Oh, I thought the screener would give it to you. We had a hard time getting my concept into a question. How do I say this? A human being cannot pass on to anybody what they do not have within themselves. So developing a new spirituality to me sometimes seems odd as a statement. Spirituality is spirituality. It's nothing new. It may be how you try, you think you're going to transmit it, but we need to, a lot of people and parents need to trust their deep spirituality and pass it on.
Okay. No,
and I don't know. I never really had. I thought she was going to give you the question because we had.
No, it's good. And I appreciate what you're saying. And look, you're right, because spirituality is ultimately a relationship. Okay, especially in the Christian vision of spirituality, it's a relationship with God. But I can have a relationship with somebody, but not know how to communicate the significance of that relationship to you. Like I could tell you about my mom, and I could tell you about my dad and how great they are and whatever. But if I don't actually figure out how to introduce you to them, you'll never actually know yourself how great they are. And the same thing kind of happens in families, right? A lot of times moms and dads, we'll have a good relationship with God. We'll love God with all of our hearts. We've had some kind of experience of God, but we have no idea how to communicate that to our kids in a meaningful way. So when I talk about a domestic church-based spirituality, I don't mean inventing some kind of new religion or something like that. I mean coming up with the language and those practices that allow parents and kids to come together and experience God in a meaningful way in the home. And so, for example, one of the first things we tried to do to address the question is to develop our book. Lisa and I wrote a book called Discovering God Together, The Catholic Guide to Raising Faithful Kids. And what we're trying to do is say, wherever you're at in your faith development and your faith life as an adult or as a parent, we all have good stuff to learn, right? And we've all got more to grow. How do we grow together with our kids? How do we invite God into our homes in a more meaningful way and encounter Him in a deeper way together in our relationships? And that book, Discovering God Together, really talks about some of those basic practices that both research and our own experience have really shown to be tremendously effective for doing that. So you make a great point, Ralph. It's not really about a new spirituality so much as it is a new way of communicating that spirituality within the home and living it in a way that makes sense to families.
Ralph?
Yes. I don't think it's a new way. I think it's just they have to communicate it. Families where the father and mother communicate it, tell their stories, the child will understand it. You've got to trust that. And it will be passed on. And if they're faithful people, it will get passed on. I don't care if there's a lot of words or if your father's artistic and he does it in his artistic work. A child will absorb what is really truth passed on, period. Adios.
We'll absorb what you passed on to us. Thank you very much for that, Ralph. Let's go to Annette in Dallas, Texas, listening on Sirius Satellite Channel 130. That's EWTN on satellite radio. Annette, your question for Dr. Popcak.
Hi, Cy and Dr. Popcak. Thanks for taking my call. I have a suggestion, and I want your intake on it. I think when couples decide to get married and they're having their preparatory sessions with a priest or whoever's doing that, one of the questions they always ask are you going to raise your children Catholic? And we always say, yes, I am. But I think that's a great opportunity right there to dig a little deeper to say, how were you raised? And did your parents do it well? Because in my situation, my husband's family parents didn't go to church anymore, and on my side, only my mother went. And there's a lot of things, like you're saying, we should have done, but we didn't. And so I'm thinking that's a great, profound moment there to say, okay,
you're absolutely right. And I'll see your suggestion, and I'll raise you one. In the course of this conversation that we've been having already, kind of about in leading up to the symposium, one of the things that's really struck us is that the one thing that only the church could give engaged couples is the one thing we don't give them, and that so when we're going, I'll tell you what it is in a second. But when couples are going through in marriage prep, they'll get talks on communication and financial management and their family of origin stuff and some basic kind of theology of marriage. Maybe they'll even get a talk on NFP if they're really lucky. But what we don't do is we don't teach couples how to pray together. And that's where it needs to start, because if a couple doesn't have a shared prayer life, then because that's where, what Ralph was saying, that's where you learn how to share and communicate your faith with the people that you love the most in that shared prayer life. And we need to do more to teach engaged couples how to have a shared marital prayer life. So so in the course of that conversation, we've developed a book, Praying For and With Your Spouse, The Way to Deeper Love. It's published by Word Among Us Press, and it really talks about not just how to say prayers with your spouse, but how to actually develop a meaningful marital spirituality and how to pray together as a couple so that you can experience God in your marriage and then communicate that experience to your kids as you're raising them up. But yeah, absolutely, that we need to do a better job of teaching couples that the expectation is going to be not just that they do raise their kids Catholic, but how to do that and how to have a meaningful prayer life that allows them to bring Christ in their home.
More than a yes. And then after they get married and the kids start coming, where are the resources to go to get that so you can evaluate how are we doing it? Are we doing this? So I think we need to go further. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. I think it's quite a blessing.
Thank you, Annette. Please pray for us. We could use it.
And go over to cflsymposium.org and fill out that questionnaire that they have for you, cflsymposium.org. Annette, thanks very, very much for that call. We're talking about Bringing the Faith Home with Dr. Greg Popcak, who helps people do that every day on his radio program and through his life and ministry as a counselor. Again, if you want to contact for counseling, then CatholicCounselors.com is where you can find him. Let's go to Lori in Houston, Texas, listening on 1430 AM. Lori, thanks for being with us. Your question for Dr. Popcak.
Hello, Dr. Popcak. I was thinking, I'm a catechist at my parish, and in the same way that you were mentioning how, like, families, it's not so much like teach families how to instill and live out the faith, but teaching families first how to be a family. In my experience as a catechist, the books, the curriculums that we have to use, they require. They have this expectation that the children know the Bible, or they know the basic Bible stories of the Pentateuch, at least, for the sacramental preparation. Do you
think the
publishers of the do you think the publishers of these curriculums, I don't know if they're all from like the 90s or 2000s. There are some, actually, the one my parish is using is, I was like, I approve of this. But it requires the students to know stuff they don't know in order to actually receive.
See, this is the point I was trying to make to I think it was Rose earlier on the show when she called in and saying that her daughter isn't sending her grandkids to Catholic school. I mean, obviously I want parents to send their kids to Catholic school. I want parents to give their kids a solid education of faith. I want parents to send their kids to folks like you, who are doing a great job. But you guys, Catholic teachers and Catholic religious educators, they can't do it all, right? So it used to be, for instance, that it would be typical for families to have story time every night at bedtime. But now, because we've forgotten that family life is an activity where you got to do stuff with your kids and actually make time to do this, we don't have time to tell those stories of our faith. And so kids are showing up for kindergarten, first and second grade religious education, and they don't know the story of Adam and Eve. They don't know the story of Noah. They don't know any of the stories that you have to assume that they've already heard, because you can't do it all in, an hour and a half a week? How much can you expect out of that time? So we've got to do something as a church to help families rediscover the ministry of family life and start empowering parents to be those primary educators of the faith at home. Otherwise, we're going to completely lose the next generation, because they won't even know those basic stories that civilization just took for granted for all this time. So yeah, that's a tremendous point, and that's why this is so incredibly important. Thank you, by the way, for the work that you're doing, though. It's tough work, especially today, and we need more people who are passionate about the faith like you, helping parents prepare their kids to experience God at home.
Lori, thanks very, very much for that call. Dr. Greg Popcak, again, our guest this hour. And so what if I can't wait for the symposium to come out with its suggestions?
Well, you can start with the resources that we've already produced. So
all right, good
our
point.
book, Discovering God Together, A Catholic Guide to Raising Faithful Kids, it's really, again, it's a book that starts to unpack all the stuff we've been talking about on this show already. How can parents begin to bring Christ into their homes in more meaningful ways so that their kids can have that meaningful encounter with Christ and start falling in love with their faith right now. We talk about how parents can identify their kids' stage of faith, because faith evolves in different stages and needs different food at different stages to keep it growing strong. We talk about how to be a faithful family, and we don't presume to have all the answers, but we give folks a good template that they can use and adapt for their unique circumstances. And then for couples who want to have a more meaningful prayer life, they can check out our book, Praying For and With Your Spouse, The Way to Deeper Love. So those two resources, Praying For and With Your Spouse, The Way to Deeper Love, and Discovering God Together, The Catholic Guide to Raising Faithful Kids.
Dr. Greg Popcak has been our guest. CatholicCounselors.com is where you can find out all about him and the work that he does every day. Go over to CFLsymposium.org and answer the questionnaire. Dr. Popcak, thank you very, very much for a fine hour.
So I thank you, and thank you for all the great work you guys do.
Coming up next, Deacon Harold Burke Sivers right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Your number one source for Catholic apologetics and evangelization. Catholic Answers Live.
Have you subscribed to the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter? This is Catholic Answers Live host Cy Kellett, and I want to tell you about our new weekly newsletter full of behind-the-scenes information and facts you need to know about the show. It's easy to sign up. Just visit CatholicAnswersLive.com and look for the newsletter sign-up box on the front of the page. It's a great way to keep up to date with what's happening with the show and see what's coming in the days ahead, delivered weekly into your inbox. Sign up today for the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter and see what you've been missing. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com.
Archbishop Charles Chaput of Philadelphia says of why we're Catholic: clear, practical, simply organized, very readable, and rich in content. It's a pleasure to recommend it. Bishop Thomas Olmsted of Phoenix says, this book is made for the challenges of our times. I highly recommend it. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking resource by apologist Trent Horn. That one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. Plant seeds of faith in the hearts and minds of your non-Catholic friends and family. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today. You can order your copies of Why We're Catholic by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What difference does it make who or what you worship, or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Sharing the gospel with family and friends can be challenging. It's especially hard when they won't even hear you out because of all the mental roadblocks they've built up. This is Carlo Broussard, and in my new book, Prepare the Way, my aim is to help you tackle that essential first step to apologetics and evangelization, getting people to listen with an open mind. Even our best witness can bounce right off folks like these if we don't prepare the way first, breaking down barriers and leaving minds and souls free to encounter the truth. I'll give you evidence and arguments and step-by-step strategies based on asking the right questions to help them overcome their obstacles and make a straight path for the Lord. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
Interested in visiting Catholic Answers? If you live in or plan to visit beautiful Southern California, we'd love to have you come by for a tour. You can meet our apologists and staff, visit our chapel, and watch the broadcast of Catholic Answers Live. To arrange a tour, call us at 619-387-7200 or email us at visit@catholic.com.
Deacon Harold Burke Sivers this hour, just as promised. Told you it was going to be a great big Wednesday. And this hour we talk about balancing faith, family, and work with Deacon Harold. Our number, 888-318-7884. If you need some help in that area, if you'd like to talk about the practicalities of balancing those things, 888-318-7884. For those of you who don't know, for the of you, there's got to be only one who are not familiar with Deacon Harold Burke Sivers. He is the founder and director of DynamicDeacon.com, a Christian evangelization and apologetics organization. He hosts several popular EWTN series. You've probably seen him on Behold the Man, Spirituality for Men, or Made in His Image, Family Life Together, Christ the Servant. And then the one he did with his current radio partner, Authentically Free at Last. You can hear him now for about the last 10 days or 2 weeks or something like that, as the co-host on Morning Glory on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be with you, Cy. Thank you. It's always great to be back on Catholic Answers.
And you're happy on Morning Glory?
Yes, I am. You know, Gloria and I have worked together before, as you mentioned, on the EWTN series. And this is my first venture in EWTN radio.
Yeah.
I have a radio show on Modern Day E-Radio, which is now syndicated. It's on in about 10 states. And so now EWTN radio, and it's been awesome. Getting up at 3 in the morning, that's another story. Taking one for the team, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Modern Day Radio, just for those who don't know, is one of the original Catholic radio stations. It's been here a long time on the air. Am I correct about that?
That's right. I think it was the first lay-owned Catholic radio station in the United States. Yep.
Very, very cool.
They're doing great. It's Oregon, Washington, and through the internet, now the signal goes out all over the world, so it's pretty awesome.
And you travel all the time, and so what do you do when you're doing the radio program and you're traveling?
Yeah, so I have a device called a Comrex, and so I'm able to do the show from basically any remote location. So the first week I was in Toronto, Ontario, and just today, I just flew back today from Lincoln, California, which is just south of Sacramento. So I've been doing the show remotely most of the time. And next week I'll be filming my 9th series with EWTN, my 5th with Father Brian Mullady. We're going down to Orange County and filming a new series on the 10 Commandments. We're doing, check this out, Si, we're doing 15 episodes on the 10 Commandments. I guess we can't count, but.
Well, that's funny. You're like, God must have a better editor than you. Like, he got it down to 10.
Yeah, so I'll be doing the show remotely from there as well. And occasionally, you know, I can't be on, or Gloria can't be on, or and so we do pre-tapes. We pre-tape the show.
Oh, very good. Well, so you'll be at the EWTN studio at the Tower of Hope there in Orange County. I love that studio.
Well, you know, actually, we're going to be going on location.
Oh,
we're going to be filming at St. Michael's Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one other location down in that area. A little different, change of pace. We did the last 4 series together. Father Brian Mullady and I did them in the studio, and change it up a little bit. We're going to be shooting outside for most of the series. It's going to be, well, unless it rains, then we have a backup plan. But
it's Orange County. It's not going to rain.
They're calling for rain next week or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. We're really excited about it, and I'm going to do probably another 200,000 miles this year, like I did last year.
Wow.
And it's just keep moving forward.
We're talking about balancing faith, family, and work with Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, and I suppose you're an example of someone who tackles a great deal. And so, do you struggle with balance, with getting it balanced in your life?
I think everybody struggles with balance in their life. I don't think there's a single person that doesn't struggle with this. It's just a matter of degrees, So, for example, it's prayer, family, work. First of all, you have to identify what your priorities are. And it should always be in the order of, no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, your spiritual walk, in your family life, relationship with God is always number one, then family, and then work, everything else after that. So, because think about it, because someone once challenged me, Si, they said, I thought for sure you put your family first. And I said, my friend, if I don't put God first in my life, I am no good to my wife and kids.
Yeah.
So relationship with God has to come first. But sometimes, let's be real. Sometimes things are going on at home. You're dealing with a child that has an issue, maybe a mental health issue, or a special needs child that needs a lot of attention. The work, maybe comes in cycles. Like me, I'm traveling a lot right now. Or maybe you're working in a manufacturing environment and, production is ramping up, or maybe you're an attorney, you have cases you're working on, or whatever it may be. And so sometimes it gets out of sync. Your prayer life drops off because you don't have time, because these other things are pulling at your time. So how do you try to manage that and balance that and get the proper perspective so that you can maintain not just a balanced life, but also a balanced family life, so that your wife and your kids are getting the attention that they need and deserve, and that God is getting the attention and the love and that he needs from us, but that he expects from us, because he's given us life, he's given us everything, and we need to return that love to him, because it's about covenant relationship. It starts off in the Bible. Think about it. Family, he established the family. Then he says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. So right there, he establishes the family, the covenant relationship of marriage, and then the procreation, unitive procreative dimensions of the relationship, and then work. You see, so even God establishes kind of the priority relationship with him, which takes place in the family, which is the natural extension of the supernatural family of God, and then the work comes after that.
888-318-7884, the number here, if you'd like to talk with Deacon Harold Burke Sivers about balancing faith, life, and work. 888-318-7884. It strikes me that maybe, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if other people are like me, but here's my deal. I'll just dump this on you. If I get out of whack in my prayer life, like you said, I have to put God first. Well, if I get to where I have not been diligent in my prayer life, or I haven't attended to it, it tends to snowball, where I feel bad about myself. I feel guilty then about that, and then it snowballs. What do you do in those situations where you're like, I just have not been doing a good job, and you got to get yourself going again?
Yeah, the one thing that brings everything back to center for me is Eucharistic adoration.
Okay.
Finding, because think about it, we are surrounded with noise and distractions and devices, and but when God wants to speak to us, he doesn't speak to us in our ears, on the sides of our heads. He speaks to us in what St. Benedict called the aurum cordis, the ear of the heart. And in order to hear that voice, you have to be quiet. So even in the scriptures, right, Jesus went off to pray by himself. He spent time with God. And sometimes when things are getting busy, things are getting crazy, you just need that silence. You need that quiet. You just need that time with God, and just say, Lord, I just need to just be with you right now. And it's not about necessarily going there to pray a rosary or do anything. And those things are well and very, very good. But what God wants really is our hearts. And Hosea chapter 6 nails it. I want a loving heart more than sacrifice, knowledge of my ways more than holocaust. So just get to that quiet, get to that silence, and just be before God and just pour out your troubles before him. And just say, Lord, I want to put things back in perspective. You know, things are getting out of whack right now. My wife's not happy. I'm stressed at my job. My prayer life is suffering. And Lord, I am here, and I want to put you back first in my life, because once I put you first, I know everything else will flow after that. So that's what I would say, Cy.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, our guest this hour, 888-318-7884. The number, we're ready to get to your call, so dial 888-318-7884. And if you're on the line, don't worry, hang on. We're going to get to you. I just got to say this. If you go to the Catholic Answers Facebook page right now, you can download a free copy of our ebook, Pro-Life Answers for a Brave New World. The offer ends like all these other offers we've been having for Pro-Life Month. At the stroke of midnight on Thursday night. So go over to the Catholic Answers Facebook page, not Catholic.com, but our Facebook page, and you can download your free copy of Pro-Life Answers for a Brave New World right now.
We're glad you're with us. Stick around for more Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
When I get up in the morning, I turn the radio on, listen to the Mass, listen to the early shows. When I transition to my automobile, I flip it over on my iPhone, then start listening to it on the web. And then when I get into the car, I actually listen to it all the way to work. When I get to work, I actually even listen to it online when I'm sitting at my desk. I just love EWTN.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, our guest this hour, and I notice online all the comments whenever Deacon Harold's on. Oh, I love Deacon Harold. I really admire Deacon Harold. All this stuff. It really, really makes me feel bad about myself. But I'm lots and lots of callers for you. We're talking about balancing faith, family, and work today with Deacon Harold, and he's one of the hardest working men in Catholic evangelization in the world, and so he's the guy to talk to about that. Let's start with Maria in Corona, California, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite Radio, Channel 130. Maria, your question for Deacon Harold.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Deacon Harold, I really love when I did see you on EWTN, the Mass, and you would do homilies. I really loved your homilies.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you know, I don't get back to the network very much now because we've been filming out in California, and the Mass, of course, is from the main studios there in Irondale near Birmingham. So maybe when I get back there, maybe I'll be on the Mass again. But I do miss preaching there, though.
Yes, thank you. My question is as follows. I am trying to grow in my spiritual life. I listen to the Mass every morning. The first thing I do is get up and read my Bible, do a scripture reading, praying for the first hour of my day. My struggle is with my husband, where we seem to be in different sides of the spectrum. He's comfortable with going to church on Sunday and, you know, maybe saying an Our Father here and there. So I just feel like I'm growing and he's not, and I think sometimes it puts a little strain in my marriage. Like I want to be more involved in my parish, and when I try doing that, I kind of get attitude when I get back home. So I guess
Marie,
I'm trying to...
Is your husband Catholic?
Yes, he is. We're
okay.
Cradle Catholics, both of us.
Okay. Okay, here's what I would say. The one thing you have to remember is that you both are one flesh, right? You're equally yoked. So if one person's prayer life is growing, because this typically happens sometimes, you know, it's one person's prayer life starts to grow, the other one either stays where it is or doesn't grow as fast. And that causes a gap or a chasm in the relationship, which is tangible, which you're experiencing right now. Here's what, and it's not always, but a lot of the time seems to be the guy that's kind of lagging behind, right? And so here's what I would say. One thing that you can do is let him know, say, honey, I love you, and I would really like us to try to pray together. Now, that may seem intimidating to him, but here's what my wife and I, it's very, very simple. Because my wife and I have two very disparate, very different prayer styles. Mine is more monastic in my prayer because I was discerning a vocation with the Benedictines. And so I love the office and I love the Latin. I love that kind of stuff. My wife is much more free form, you know, much more Holy Spirit kind of driven. And that, you know, never the twain shall meet kind of thing. But here's what we do. I get up every morning and I say, Lord, thank you for allowing me to see the light of another day so that I may give honor, praise, and glory to your most holy name. And then I grab my wife and I say, Lord, I thank you for the gift of my wife. I thank you for our 24 years together. I thank you for our beautiful children. Lord, help me to be the husband and the father that I need to be for them today. And she says something quickly back to me, and I get out of bed. Now, how long did that take? Maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes? There's 168 hours in a week, and there's no reason why spouses cannot spend at least a couple of minutes a day, just a simple prayer. Not, you know, and maybe you could build up. I know some couples that are really into the rosary and things like that, but where you are with your relationship with your husband, start small. Let him know, because he's the priest in that house. He's the priest of the family. His job is to die to himself every day to live for you and for your children. And the main job of a priest to offer sacrifice. And so the main sacrifice that a priest offers is prayer. And so he needs to become the chief prayer in your family as the priest. And so just tell him, I need this from you. Maybe just Our Father together, Hail Mary together, something small, and then build from there.
Perfectly. I've tried that approach, and his response is, you have your relationship with God, I have mine. That's kind of like the response.
Yeah, see, the problem is in the marriage covenant, you're one flesh. The two are one. You know, so yes, you have your individual personalities, you have your individual styles of prayer, like my wife and I do, same thing. But you also have to come together, because remember, it's a Trinity. The family on earth is the image and likeness of the family in heaven, you know, and so there needs to be that unity. Just like there's unity within the Trinity, there needs to be unity within the family, and it's that life of prayer that brings that family dynamic together. And so yeah, I understand what he's saying, because same thing with my wife and I, but he has to understand that it's important and critical for a healthy spiritual marriage and to pray together. He just needs to find something you can do together. Maybe he has a favorite prayer. Find out what that is and pray that prayer with him. And again, start small and work from there.
Maria, thank you so much for that call. 888-318-7884 is our number. Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is our guest this hour. We're talking about balancing faith, life, and work. I have to say, you know, my wife was not a religious person before we got married, and that praying together thing was uncomfortable for her for a while. And you just said, she started saying this prayer in the morning, Lord, please send me a cup of coffee. And then I would get up and get her a cup of coffee, and her prayer would be answered. So
there you go.
888-318-7884, the number. Raymond in Dallas, Texas, listening on 910 AM. You are up next with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. Your question, Raymond.
Hi, thanks for taking my call so fast. I was barely on hold. That's wonderful.
No, well, you scored today. I don't know. They put you up at the top, so it must be a good question.
It must be a good question. I appreciate it. Thanks. Well, here goes. As it relates to family and everything else, I hope. My dilemma these days is reconciling prayer and wondering if prayer really brings us, if it's just something that soothes us in some spiritual way, or if it really brings us closer to God's will. I've seen way too many examples of what doesn't really seem to be God answering prayer or us coming, as far as Catholics go, and our understanding, I am a Catholic practicing, that it really brings us closer to God. So I'm wondering what kind of, is it a one-way street? Is it a two-way street? Is God meeting us where we are? Are we getting closer to God? Does he answer prayer? I just don't see many manifestations of it.
Okay. So, Patrick, are you married?
Yes.
Okay. And so, how did you get to know your wife? Did you talk to her? Or did you read about her in a book and say, I'm in love because I read about my wife in a book, or did you actually talk to her?
I talked to her.
Yeah. And so that's basically the relationship with God is prayer. It's talking to God. It's communicating with God. It's our hearts, in a sense, communicating and connecting with, if quote unquote, God's heart. All right. And so just like you got to know your wife deeply, personally, and intimately by talking to her, by communicating with her, that's in the very essence what prayer is. It's that because God seeks us out, he desires intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion with us. And the way we connect with God is through prayer. Now, God always answers prayers, but he answers them in a way that always brings us closer to relationship with him. So sometimes that prayer sounds like a no. Sometimes that prayer sounds like yes. Like, I'll give you an example, Raymond. When I was discerning leaving my secular job to speak, become a Catholic evangelist, and to write books full time was not a very easy decision. I went before the Lord, and in adoration, the Lord, in my prayer, I said, Lord, whatever your will is, that's what I want. And the Lord made it clear to me that he wanted me to leave my job. I said, well, no, Lord, I guess what I really meant is, like, how can I do both? And the Lord said, nah, I need you to leave and do something else, you know? And it was scary. But I tell you, Raymond, it's the best thing I could have ever done. Was it easy? No. Was it stressful? Yes. But so was the cross. And Jesus says, if you are to be my disciples, you must deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. So following God's will, when you're praying to God and you're following God's will in that prayer, it is not always easy because, quite frankly, Raymond, most of life is the cross. And so we think because God's not a genie. It's not like I want to win the lottery. And so if you don't win the lottery, say, oh, see, God didn't answer my prayer. What's the point of praying? That's not the point. The point is your heart communicating and touching with God's heart and listening to what God's will is for your life. That's critically important. Not just talking, but also listening. And so, yeah, so sometimes it feels like, well, God's not answering my prayer. You know, I prayed for my mom to get through her surgery, and she died in surgery because God wanted her to be, that was her time, and God needed her to be with him. You know, but I wanted her to live longer. That's why we have to maybe get the lesson there is God sees us. We need to really appreciate the people and tell them how much we love them while they're alive and not waiting till they're sick or almost dead to be, you know, to tell them how we feel about them. So there's always a lesson in God's will in the way that he chooses to answer our prayers, which again, ultimately bring us into deeper intimacy with him. But sometimes it could be frustrating because the answer is not always clear. It's not always direct. I'd love for God to say, Deacon Harold, here's what I need you to do. Oh, good. Oh, good. Now it's clear. But sometimes you just get a sense within yourself that, okay, God is calling me to do this. I'm not really sure if I want to do that, but you know, but I really believe in my heart that God is calling me. Look at Jesus on Holy Thursday, Raymond. He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, God, if there's another way we can do this, now's the time to let me know. But ultimately, what did he say? Your will, Father, your will, not my will. So we have to die to self in order to enter deeply into the relationship with God through prayer. And so that death to self is painful because we always want to feel good when we're praying, but sometimes we don't, you know, but we have to be confident, always confident that God will always answer prayer in a way that will lead us into deeper intimacy with him. Sometimes that road is a little rocky. It's a little rough. It's a little steep. It's a little scary. Like kind of riding a roller coaster. But we have to trust that God is God and he knows what he's doing. He created us and he loves us and he knows us better than we know ourselves. And we just have to take comfort in that, that God is always with us and always listening to us.
How's that sound?
Well, I guess my dilemma is that it seems to me that with so many different people praying, and if it's one God, that all of us in our different places should be coming closer and closer and closer to this one God. But often it seems to me, and I've seen it in my family and other places, where it doesn't seem like we come closer and closer to this one point. It seems like we often go further and further apart. So that's my dilemma right now, is that if it's one God who does answer, I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's working right now in my life. I don't see it in a personal way, and in the micro and in the macro.
All right.
You understand? I don't see that people are coming closer and closer to this one unifying God.
Okay, Deacon?
Well, depends what you mean by coming closer. You know, for me, coming closer means that what God wants in my life, I am moving closer in my life to uniting my will to his will, whatever that will is. Now, if you mean by coming closer, everybody kind of is on the same page and thinking the same way, that's probably not going to happen. I mean, there's different people with different personalities, and God calls and touches each person differently. So everybody has to find what their path is to God through prayer, through the sacraments, through the silence, through cooperating with the grace that God gives us. All that has to happen. Just praying like you want like you're ordering something from Amazon, or it's just a wish list. Okay, God, I need you to do this. No, it's heart to heart. It's that adoratio, right? Adoration means mouth to mouth. It's being intimate with God. And so it's again, God's not a genie that's going to grant our wish, but we have to be patient because God works in his time, and God's timing is always perfect, but it's not always our time.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is our guest. We're talking about balancing faith, family, and work today. 888-31-TRUTH is the number. 888-318-7884. And to tell you the truth, whether you're Catholic or not, your call is welcome. We'll be back with more with Deacon Harold right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Glad you're with us. Join us on air with your questions today on Catholic Answers Live.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture's moral center continues to fly apart, and with every form of deviance publicly aired and celebrated, we have no choice but to equip our kids to understand about such issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. Silence can no longer be an option. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging on to the shop at Catholic.com.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
I'm Gloria Purvis.
I'm Deacon Harold. The Morning Glory team talks about keeping kids at Mass or kicking them out.
Tomorrow morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Catholic Answers Live. Hey, Cy.
I am alive. Gloria Purvis said hi to me. It proves that I am a living being every time. Well, Deacon Harold, I don't want to say this in any kind of negative way, but why does she say hi to me? And you're like, nothing. I got nothing from you.
Because when we do the spots, she does the first and the last line. I do the two middle lines.
I got you.
You know, it's funny when I told her, because not only am I a guest, this is like my 30th or 29th time on Catholic Answers Live, but I'm also a fan. So I download the episodes. I listen to all of the Catholic Answers Live podcasts. And so when she first did that, you reacted. She said hi to me, and then she didn't say it. What? Gloria didn't say hi to me, you know. So I said, Gloria, you have to say hi to Cy all the time. And so she really admires and respects you, Cy. I must say that. And so she's very happy to make sure she gives you a shout out.
Well, you know, you talked about that chemistry that you and Gloria have, and I know it's true, but Gloria to me is the easiest person to talk to on the radio. I just think she's wonderful, and so I feel the same way. I'm a fan of both of yours. I'm so glad the two of you are together, and it really does kind of make my day when Gloria says hi to me.
Well, before we move forward, let me just one more thing I want to address with Raymond. I just want to talk for my own family. You know, I have two brothers and a sister who I love very, very much. I had a brother who was away from the church forever, and I pray for all three of them. Okay, I pray for all three. Now, after literally years and years of praying and even fasting, you know, I do a little extra fasting during Lent for them. My brother now, not only is he back in the church, he's a daily mass goer. Okay. Now, my other brother and sister are still struggling, and there's still challenges there. But you know what? I am not going to give up on God. My father did not come to faith in Jesus Christ. He was 74 years old, and I wrote my father off for dead. You know, and so I you know, hang in there, Raymond. You know, and just trust that God will answer. Don't try to expect this or that from God. God knows each and every person in your family. He loves them with an intimacy that you will never even imagine. Like if they were the only person that's ever been created. So you just have to pray and trust that God's will be worked in their life. And if they open their hearts to receive what God wants to give them, then that's a marriage made in heaven.
Again, thank you, Raymond, very much for that call. And I don't want to put callers off, but I have to ask you about something, because I'm also a great fan of Sophia Institute Press. They make beautiful books. And I see this beautiful book that you wrote about Father Augustus Tolton. Maybe you could just real quick tell us why you wrote a book about this man.
Yeah, so when I was in 7th grade and preparing for confirmation, I'd look for a confirmation saint, and came across the Sister Carolyn Hemesat's book, which was printed in the early 70s, on Father Augustus Tolton. Never heard of him before. And so I got the book and I read through it. And I'm like, wow, you know, it kind of filed in the back of my head. And so Ignatius Press in 2005 bought the rights and released Sister Hemesat's book, which is a biography on his life. My book are lessons we can learn from his life. So I talk about overcoming racism, building strong families, the power of prayer, finding joy in God's mercy, you know, and so how can we use his life as kind of a lens to deal with issues in our families, in our world, in our culture today?
Just for those who don't know, Father Augustus Tolton, he is one of the most remarkable firsts in the history of the American church, certainly. Tell us about that.
Yeah, first black priest in the United States, born in 1854 in Brush Creek, Missouri, born a slave. In fact, on his birth certificate, it says Augustus John Tolton, property of Stephen Elliott, who was the slave owner.
Oh, man.
Escaped through the Underground Railroad with his mom and his brother and sister, made it to Quincy, Illinois, was rejected by the parishioners. The priests and the nuns welcomed the family, but the parishioners rejected him because they were black. He was accepted finally into a parish. The priest saw that he had some potential to be a priest, wrote every seminary in the United States. Each one rejected him, every single one, because he was black. The Vatican took him, trained him at the Vatican Seminary, sent him back to Quincy, Illinois as a priest. Struggled again because the white priests did not like a black priest in their community. He ended up going ultimately to Chicago, where he worked with black Catholics there until he died in 1897 at 43 years old. And so his cause for canonization is moving forward. We're just waiting for a miracle now for beatification. So we got to pray for that.
Where's the movie? This is a movie life right here.
Well, we know St. Luke Productions, Leonardo D. Philippus, has a play on Father Augustus Tolton that's traveling around the country. So I would encourage anyone that wants to know more about his story, obviously, to pick up my book. But also, if you notice that the play from St. Luke Productions is coming to your town, to go and see it, because it's very, very well done.
I'm uncomfortable with the implication, however, that there was ever racial bias in the Catholic Church in America. That can't have been true. Catholics?
True.
I thought we were perfect.
Yeah. Look at what's going on now. We long from perfect, bro.
Yeah. So the thing is, the
church is perfect.
Okay.
The people in the church are not. And that was a huge lesson that Father Augustus Tolton teaches us. I mean, he focused on the richness and the beauty and the truth of the teachings of the church, and not the people in the church who are sinners in need of God's mercy, who fail the people that they are charged to serve. But we have to focus on Christ. We have to focus on the sacraments. We have to focus on cooperating with the grace of those sacraments so we can be the people who God created us to be, despite what's going on within the bureaucracy within the church. We have to stay focused on Jesus Christ and the sacraments, the Eucharist, and then we'll always have that compass pointing north, right, toward our ultimate end. Beatific vision, life with God forever in heaven.
Praise God. Thank you, Deacon, and thank you for the book. The book is Father Augustus Tolton, the slave who became the first African-American priest. You can get it from Sophia Institute Press. I hope you will. This is a man worth knowing. I didn't know there was a play about him, and we can continue. Just years and years and years out here in California, we prayed for the sainthood of Father Junipero Serra, and that's what it takes. It takes prayer, and so we can pray for the canonization of Father Tolton as well. Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is our guest. You know him from all kinds of things, but nowadays from the Morning Glory program in the mornings on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. And today we're talking about balancing faith, life, and work. So let us go back to the phones. Patrick in Houston, Texas, listening on the Ave Maria radio app. Patrick, your question for Deacon Harold.
Good evening. First, I'd like to say, Deacon Harold, thank you so much for all that you do. And I know I've got friends that are going through the Deacon program now. It's a 6-year program here in Houston. And so the dedication that it takes to get through all of that, and then, of course, praying the hours and leading people the way that you do, it's tremendous. So catechist for our confirmation program, we've got 60 kids that we're taking through this year, and then we've got as well, we've got 30 to 60 every year. And I see those kids go through, and then they have another year or two of high school, and then they go off to college. A lot of them stop going to Mass. They become disconnected. They seem to be wandering out there. And so I kind of bang my head against the wall a little bit. What can I do to help them in more than what we're already doing with our confirmation program, et cetera? And the Holy Spirit brings it back to me. He tells me it's my holiness that is both the problem and the solution. And so, so intimacy. You used the word intimacy earlier.
Yes.
With Christ is something that comes back to me as well. And when I think about intimacy, if I go back, a couple of years ago, I would not rate myself very high. I'm stepping towards that in prayer. I'm stepping towards that in listening. But another measure, I think, of intimacy and following Christ the way I should. Would be my participation in the corporal acts of mercy, feeding the hungry, the thirsty, visiting those in prison, and helping the sick, shelter, those in great need, tending to those people outside of the church, not only ministering inside the church but outside the church, and I have a great struggle in paying the mortgage and the kids' student loans. My wife is Catholic, and we've got 4 kids that have all made it through college. We've got, a set of loans to pay off. And so I've got to work. My wife jokes and says, look, don't tell me we're selling everything and moving to India. And we have a chuckle about that. But how do I know? We talk about knowing by the fruits, right? But I could be a Catholic that stays inside the church, that ministers inside the church, that goes to adoration, goes to reconciliation, prays the rosary every week, is gaining in prayer time, if you will, but somehow I'll look at the fruit of, well, what am I doing outside the church, and what am I doing in the Gospel of Matthew 25, the final judgment. How not that I need to grade myself on all that stuff, but where and is that really the key? Greg, one other comment earlier, Dr. Popchak was talking about family and how you raise your children, and people called and said, well, they need to go to Catholic school or they need to do this. He said it starts in the family, and it's really what's going on, prayer with the family and all this kind of a thing. But I'm wondering if there's still a step further, and that I stretch myself out and really reach out into the community around me.
All right, well, we got to let Deacon Harold respond.
Wow, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Okay, a couple things. One, you mentioned the kids that you're working with in the parish. Here's the deal. I'm not saying you do this, but what we can't keep doing is filling these kids with pizza and soda and programming them to death. Okay, so a lot of kids know a lot of, and they end up knowing a lot of stuff about Jesus, but they don't truly know Jesus deeply or personally, intimately. And what's the fruits of that? They say Mass is boring. They say Mass is boring because they have no idea why they're there. They're there because mommy and daddy make them go. They're there because they have to sign a piece of paper to show the priest they're there so they can get confirmed. Or there's an expectation I have to be there or else won't get confirmed. Look, we have to connect what is happening at the Mass and all the sacraments to their everyday lived experience. So when they're going to Mass, why am I here? What is Christ doing for me? Why is the priest doing that? What does that action at that altar have to do with my life every day? When we start connecting them deeply and so they can understand why this is happening. I was like, how do they get more out of the Word of God, the readings? How do they more deeply connect themselves to what God is doing to them in the readings? And once we make those connections between in the Word and sacrament, then they're going to want to go to Mass, because now the handoff is this. The handoff is, I, as a parent, as a catechist, as a priest or a deacon, my job is to hand down the faith to these children. And they need to take what I give them and appropriate it and make it their own. So the lesson is this. Jesus says, if you build a house on a piece of land, the wind's going to come and rain's going to come. It's going to knock it over because it's not built on a foundation. Our job is to provide a solid foundation upon which Christ will build the house of their lives with their children. Psalm 127, one of the Psalms written by Solomon, that one in 72, says, if the Lord does not build the house, in vain do the builders labor. So the Lord has to build the house of our children's lives with them. We can't do that. Our job as parents, catechists, teachers, deacons, and priests, our job is to help lay a strong foundation upon which the house of their lives will be built with Christ. And so the way you can do that more better is you're saying your prayers and things like that, trying to find a balance. Here's what I would suggest. One of the things is what I call filling gap time. Because sometimes less is more. Sometimes we're praying and our hearts aren't there. We're saying because it becomes rote. Our hearts aren't engaged. God wants, like I said before, God wants our hearts. That's what he wants. So, for example, when I'm traveling, like on the way back, flying from California today, I was in the airport. I'm in airports a lot. I was listening to podcasts. In fact, those who are watching on YouTube, I'll just pull up right now. I'll show you the kind of stuff that I listen to. Right here, Council of Trent, the Liturgy Guys, Living Stones. Well, that's my show. The Ruth Institute, Catholic Stuff You Should Know, Pints with Aquinas. So I'm always filling those gap times, those times where I'm just like, there's nothing going on, driving in the car on the way to work, waiting in the line at the grocery store. What are you listening to? that's engaging your heart and mind and bringing you to deeper intimacy with Christ, filling those gaps within our day with Christ, right? And of course, I said before, going to Eucharistic adoration, game changer. I can't think of anything better than finding time to fill in your life and just ponder where you are in your life, where you're going. Mark Twain once said the two greatest days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And the way you come to know what your purpose is in life is to spend that time with God, most especially in adoration. Now, why do I say adoration? You can pray anywhere. That's true. That's true. When I travel, I like to talk to my wife, but I'd rather be with her. Because isn't it always better to be in the presence of the person that you love when you're talking to them? You can pray in the tabernacle. That's fine too. But think about it like this. Imagine you invite someone that you love over to your house. And when they get to the door, they knock on the door and you say, you see that chair next to the door? Pull the chair over to the door. And you sit on the door on the other side. You talk to them through the door. That works too. But isn't it always better to be in the presence of the person that you love when you're talking to them? Find the time for that silence and adoration. I keep emphasizing this. I'm telling you, it's a game changer, man. Absolute game changer. So that's what I'd recommend. Get that perspective and balance. Connect the kids more deeply to their faith. And the last piece, the corporal works of mercy. Look, sometimes kids do these projects because they need hours for school and they have to do it. No. Our witness and our example is the best thing we can do for our children. Doing things because we don't have to, because we want to. So when you take the kids to the homeless shelter, not because they need service hours for confirmation, but because you know what? We are Catholics. We follow Jesus. This is what we must do. This is an expectation. And the joy that they get from breaking themselves open and pouring themselves out when they learn that life is not all about me. I am not the center. When you are making a gift of yourself to others, that's when you can truly be who you are. Why? It's when you give yourself away in love is when you truly find yourself in God.
You know what? We're going to have to leave it there because we have to go to a break. But Patrick, thank you so much for that call. I hope you will, answer Deacon's call for Eucharistic adoration. Even for the very, very busy person, Deacon, there's those few minutes after Mass when everyone's hustling out. You can just stay and talk with Jesus. You can just stay and visit. Yeah. You don't have to just get up or go.
If it's quiet, hopefully it'll be quiet.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more on balancing faith, life, and work with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers right after this.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
In Father Augustus Tolton, the slave who became the first African-American priest, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers introduces you to a man who rose above seemingly insurmountable challenges to become a tireless messenger of the gospel. Father Augustus Tolton, the slave who became the first African-American priest, by Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, now available at EWTNRC.com or call us at 1-800-854-6316.
Welcome back, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, our guest this hour. And by the way, I don't think I have said it, or if I said it, I didn't say it enough. You can find out all about him at his website, deaconharold.com. Just go to deaconharold.com and you will get all kinds of good stuff, including a pilgrimage coming up. You're going to go to the Holy Land. When's that, May?
Yeah, going in May with Father Larry Richards and Sonia Corbett. Sonia Corbett's a phenomenal evangelist and teacher. And we co-wrote a book together called Ignite, Read the Bible Like Never Before. And we mentioned a lot of places in the Holy Land, so we thought, wouldn't it be great to have a pilgrimage where the book actually comes alive?
Yeah.
So all people who've been enjoying the book can actually now experience the book and kind of that fifth gospel firsthand in the Holy Land. So we're excited about that.
And so they can find out about that at deaconharold.com as well? Find out about the book?
Yeah, so I'll have some. I'm actually setting up a pilgrimage page on my website right now.
Okay.
But go to my Facebook page. There'll be information there.
Let's go to Justin. Justin now in Spokane, Washington, listening on 106.1 FM. Justin, your question for Deacon Harold.
Yeah, my question is two-part. The first part is I've heard it said that one should wait to pursue the diaconate until their children are adults and out of the home. The first part is, do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that? And the second part would be, when you have a time conflict between your job, the diaconate, and family, how you prioritize that.
Yeah, great questions, Justin. There is no rule in canon law about how old your kids have to be in order to begin the diaconate program. It depends on the bishop and the diocese, basically. For example, in my case, I was accepted into the program at 30 years old. I'd only been married for a couple of years. We had no children at the time when I was accepted into the program. In fact, we had 2 of our 4 children during the diaconate formation program. You know, so it's going to vary from diocese to diocese. And the reason why some dioceses say, or some bishops say, well, you know, the kids have to be a certain age. They don't want the diaconate and the process of becoming a deacon, or even after you're ordained, the expectations and the work that the deacon is expected to do to interfere with that family life. So they figure if the kids weren't younger and they were more mature, then it would be easier for the family. But I think that's something, personally, I think that's something that needs to be decided on a case-by-case basis by looking at the family. And the other thing that's critically important in that, Justin, is speaking with your wife. You know, if your wife is not on board, or your wife says, you know what, honey, I want to support you in this, but can we wait till the kids are a little older, because I really need some help right now, or I really need you home right now. Because here's the thing, Justin. When you're discerning a call to the diaconate, the church, when you're accepted into the program, the church is saying you're already serving very well as a deacon, remember, diaconia means servant, as a servant in the domestic church in your home. Now the church is discerning, can he take these gifts that he's doing so well at home and share those gifts with the entire church? That's what the discernment process is about. But if you're not doing a good job at home, remember the priorities that I said before: God, family, everything else after that, including the diaconate. And I do that to this very day. When I travel 200,000 miles a year, I go nowhere unless my wife says it's okay for me to go. Now you may say, "Oh, she's no." Look, I truly believe with all my heart that the Holy Spirit speaks through my wife, and if I don't listen to her, I am an idiot, plain and simple. So that's the first thing. The other thing is again, trying to balance everything. Again, once you keep your priorities straight, because you're a deacon. Look, a deacon is not just a functionary thing. I am a deacon all the time. When I'm on the plane, I'm a deacon. When I'm at home, my wife, I'm still a deacon. You know, so it's not like this desperate thing. When I'm home, I'm a husband. When I'm speaking in a parish mission, I'm a deacon. No, it's all integrated together. So God uses all those gifts and all those graces. I'll tell you this: I am a better husband and father because of the diaconate, and I'm a better deacon because I'm a better husband and father. So it all works and integrates together. We can't see these things as being separate. And as long as we maintain those priorities, we'll be able to work out the balance that we need to be the husbands and the fathers, and God willing for you, maybe one day, Justin, the deacon that the church calls and needs you to be.
Justin, I'm going to leave it there because I want to get to everybody if I can. Maria in Beaverton, Oregon, listening on 88.3 FM. Your question for Deacon Harold, and it's going to have to be kind of quick.
Yeah, hi. My husband's been homeschooling our kids for about a year, and I work, so I'm the sole breadwinner. And my question is, how can I support him in kind of like our role reversal and being home with the kids and day-to-day stressors that this new job of working at home with our kids all the time, when I seriously can't come home and support him that way? What would your suggestion be?
That's a great question, Maria, because sometimes when you call the role reversals, sometimes the man may feel like less than a man, because I should be the one providing my family. My job is to serve, protect, and defend, to die to myself, to live, for my wife and kids. And a lot of the time it looks like he is the provider for the family. But you know what? In every case is different. In your case, his job is to be, because, for example, my good friend Abby Johnson, who I love and admire tremendously, that's the situation they're in. Her husband's home with the kids while she's out speaking and sharing the pro-life message of the church. That doesn't make him any less than a man, because he's sacrificing and dying to himself so he can be there to support his family in the best way that works for that family. He's still a good husband. He's still a good father, but you need to support him. Honey, what can I do for you? And make him feel like a man. Make him feel like, go out on dates with him. You know, get a babysitter for the kids. You guys go on a date. Make him pay, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Make him feel like he's still the husband, and he still feels like a man, like he still is the chief protector and defender of your family, despite this role reversal that you have going on right now.
Maria, you can probably hear the music, so we got to keep moving. Deacon, you want to say something else?
No, I just want to say thank you, Cy, for having me back on. I love Catholic Answers, love the work that you're doing, and I will keep you all my prayers.
Well, may we have your blessing before we go?
Sure, man. Mighty God bless you and keep you and your families, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Deacon Harold, thank you so much for a very fine hour. You really need to get more fired up, but I know you can work on that.
I'll talk to Gloria about that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, please say hi to Gloria from all of us here. If you want to find out more about Deacon Harold, go to deaconharold.com. Don't forget the pilgrimage coming up in May and the wonderful book on Father Augustus Tolton. You can get that over at Sophia Institute Press. See you tomorrow for Open Forum.